I know when we began recording. Okay, looks good. And let's go ahead and start off kind of with presenting ourselves. My name's Abraham Magana. I'm the Youth Grant Manager and Grant Manager and Process Analyst for YDO. I'll go ahead and pass it to you, Paul. Go next.
Thanks, Abe. My name is Paul Sala. I am an Associate Director here at Youth Development Oregon. I help oversee our youth grants work. I'll also be behind the scenes capturing your questions in chat, so please feel free to pass those along in chat as we go through. I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Paul. Brian Detman, Youth Development Director. Just appreciate everybody's attendance and attention today. I am managing a couple of grants, so this is new territory for me. So I'm learning along with you grantees and just getting myself up to speed as I manage a couple of grants in this biennium. And I will pass it to Tanisha.
Thanks, Brian. My name is Tanisha Bishop, and I'm the Youth Grant Administrative Specialist. I will be here today behind the scenes. Thank you for being here, and I'll pass it to Molly.
Thanks, Tanisha. Molly Burns. I'm a Grant Manager and Re-engagement Analyst. I'll pass it to Jared.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jared Shaw. I'm a Grant Manager and Workforce Analyst, and I'll pass it to Sally.
All, I'm Sally Deck. I am the Future Ready Grant Manager and also handle a couple of the workforce grants as well. And if that's all of us, I'll pass it back to you, Abe.
All right, thank you, team. As you can see there's kind of the agenda for what we're going to be covering today. It'll be a brief overview, some important concepts, and then I'll go ahead and just show you and kind of do a demo of the expenditure report. Know that the Q&A portion of this will not be recorded, but that will be towards the end of the presentation. Next slide. We did that. There we go. Overview reporting. Go ahead. And these first few slides are going to be a little bit of a repeat from what we did earlier in the week. I'm going to probably try to go whiz through them real quick, but just know that anytime we refer to SM Apply or SMA or SurveyMonkey Apply, we're talking about the platform or the website that we're using for reporting. You see the link there. When we go ahead and post this online, that link, you will be able to click on it. But there's some of this information here that relates to SMA, who can submit quarterly reporting. It's something called the owner inside the system. Collaborators can edit information in there. But that's where you'll go in SM Apply to do the narrative report, your budget narrative, right there in bold, obviously expenditure report, which we're covering today, the data report. And that's kind of also where you acknowledge that you've submitted the reports, or completed the reports, I should say, and also submitted your EGMS claim, which we'll talk about in the next few slides here. Next slide. Just to let you know, we do have a technical assistance page for each one of our grants for community investments or re-engagement and Future Ready. A lot of these links you'll find there. The pages are currently being updated, so here in the next few days, you may see some stuff being added, including this presentation. But right now, at least on the CI one, you can see some of this information. There's an SM Apply FAQ, the EGMS homepage, the reporting schedule, an example of a narrative report, an example of a data report, and also an example of an expenditure report. And like I mentioned, there's videos and something that we just discussed, possibly also posting an example of a budget narrative. So you'll know what that looks like. Next slide. The reporting schedule, deadlines. I know right now there's some delays happening and those will be adjusted. So you don't need to worry about that currently. These were kind of what was the original deadlines. But like I said, once we do adjust some of those deadlines, we will all let you all know. But that kind of gives you there, the deadlines are usually the last day of the month following the quarter's end. The expenditure reports due at the same time as the data report, the budget narrative, and your EGMS claim. But the narrative report is due biannually, so every 2 quarters, quarter 2, quarter 4, quarter 6, and quarter 8. Next slide. Now I'm going to talk about how the expenditure report and kind of how it works with EGMS. So your expenditure report, the link to access your expenditure report will be an SMA. And like we've mentioned before, you can see a lot of repetition in some of these slides, but it has to be completed quarterly. And we do have a template on our website. Now the EGMS claim, that's kind of the formal accounting. That's kind of ODE. They keep track of that. But when you submit your quarterly reporting, you also have to submit what's called an EGMS claim in the EGMS system, the electronic grant management system. And that's through ODE. They manage that. And when you do your expenditure report, that's where you put your request for funds. And that request amount has to match what you put in the EGMS claim or request, if you will, also. So they have to mirror each other. They have to be exactly the same. If one isn't, something doesn't match, well, you won't get approved for that. And we'll probably end up reaching out to you saying, hey, there's something here not matching. And there's links there, and you'll be able to access links to EGMS site there, as well as the technical assistance website. Next slide. Expenditure reporting, okay. All right, so why? Kind of the why behind reporting. Well, easiest and really one of your requirements. When you receive your agreements, that's going to be stipulated in there, and you're agreeing to that. And also, it kind of demonstrates, well, how are you using your funds? Where are you spending your funds? It helps us in kind of tracking and monitoring. And just so you kind of understand, we're not just looking at it by itself. When we look at the expenditure report, when we're reviewing the reports, we kind of look at it, okay, we'll read your data report, we'll read your expenditure report, your narrative, your budget narrative, right? And then your biannual regular narrative, right? And we kind of try to see if there's any sort of links, anything, just making sure that it makes sense. There's no red flags, if you will, where something like, wait, what's all this spending here on, I don't know, 20,000 in traveling, but there's no mention of any traveling in the narrative, right? In the biannual report and or maybe in the budget narrative, right? So we do kind of take that holistic approach when we're reviewing the reporting. But in regards to the expenditure report, really is, well, in general, most of the report is, how is funding being used to serve the youth you said you were going to end up serving? At the end of the day, that's what we want to be able to see and understand. Next slide. The expenditure report, it's an Excel workbook. Again, you'll see it, some of it in here in the next few slides. You'll see what it looks like. Again, it's a link in SM Apply. And the really cool thing about it, like I say, is ultimately when you go in SM Apply, that for us is when you hit submit in SM Apply, that's when we get notified that you've submitted all your reports. That's how we know, oh, okay, let's look at it, and we'll get it in our queue and we'll look at it in the order that we got it, right? But the really cool thing about the expenditure report, similarly to the data report, is it's its own link, and it's usually on the cloud, meaning that you can just bookmark the link and you can go in there and update it in real time. You don't have to wait until the last day or the day before the deadline, say, oh, let me go in there. No, you can do it in real time. If you enrolled a youth and you got that information, later that day, you can put that information of the youth in the data report, for example, or if certain expenditures that have occurred, right? Next slide. Let me put this in context here. And it's because I haven't brought up the expenditure report. It really is just kind of a fill in the blank every quarter. You write, all right, well, what funds were expended that go in regards to the funds that we use with the grant. We also understand that our grant funds aren't solely paying for a whole program, right? Sometimes it's a certain percentage of a programming, right? Or a certain percentage of services you're delivering to a youth, right? But at the end of the day, we want to be able to see that in the expenditure report. And like I said, we try to make it as easier and as we can for anybody. You don't have to have an accounting background, or we hope you don't, at least, to be able to fill it out. And here in a little bit, when I demo it, you will see it is just kind of fill in the blank. But it can be a little intimidating when you first open it, and you'll see this in a little bit. Next slide. So expenditure report is really kind of, I'm gonna put some quotation marks here, kind of a year in review. So the expenditure report, like I said, it's a workbook, an Excel workbook. There's two tabs. One of your tabs will be year one, and the other tab is year two, right? And year one goes from June 2023 to July 2024, right? And then June 2024 to July 2025, right? So you split it. There are 8 reporting periods or quarters. Like I said, you'll see it here already. We mentioned, since we'll say Q1 or Q2, and it depends for what reporting period, right? Again, when we say the expenditure report, we're talking about the whole workbook. not just one of the tabs in the workbook, but the whole workbook. And like I said, you're not emailing us a workbook, or you're not taking a screenshot or PDFing and emailing us, or however you want to do. You just fill it out online, within the link that we provide for you, whether you access it through SM Apply or you've accessed it already in SM Apply and you bookmarked it, and then you go at a different time to do it. So just to kind of let you know, the expenditure report, when we say that, we're referring to the whole workbook. Next slide. Again, like I mentioned before, the reason we mention it, kind of, it comes up more than once here, is because it does happen where, and I understand why, it may happen. It's where a program person may be filling out something in the expenditure report, but the finance or the accounting office actually submits the formal EGMS claim. But we ask and request that you kind of ensure that those two things are the same. And the reason I say that is because what happens is it causes delays, further delays, when one doesn't match the other. And sometimes what you realize is, oh, wait, maybe the claim was correct, but what they put in the expenditure report was incorrect, or vice versa, right? So if you can do that kind of check before you actually submit the EGMS claim, right, that'd be great. It just makes for a smoother transaction, because what happens is if there is a mistake, we'll make a note of it. We'll probably email you, let you know, and then we'll just move on to the next person who's in the queue. And then we won't get back to you till we go back and start all over in the queue. So just to kind of give you a heads up, it's better if you can get it right the first time. But I understand mistakes happen, and we'll do our best to get to it as quickly as we can in the time that we have. Next slide. This is just, again, some other helpful tips here in regards to kind of what not to do in the expenditure report. We ask that you don't delete any of the approved amounts. We usually lock them, but we're only human, and sometimes we may not lock one of the tabs, like a quarter one or quarter one tab, or something may not get locked properly, right? Do not alter the template. There are formulas in there, and if you alter a template, it could mess up the formulas, and you would possibly have to redo whatever work you've already done in the past, which is also time consuming. Again, so it's kind of reiterated already this, but make sure your claim request matches your expenditure quarterly request. And at the end of the day, EGMS, that's the official record of your grant funds. In EGMS, you will see the award amount, the name of your grant award, your balance, all of that will be in EGMS. The expenditure report will show it too, but the formal, if you will, official, right, what ODE tracks and uses is in EGMS. Next slide. Oh, we're at the demo. All right, I guess it's my turn to share my screen. Give me a moment.
Hey, Abe, while you're transitioning, sorry, I'm just going to come on. Wanted to jump on because there is a question around the fiscal reporting year. I think there's a little miscommunication, is that yes, the chat is correct. The fiscal reporting year is from July 1, 2023 through June 30 of 2024. And then your second fiscal year would start on that July 1. I think I want to just clarify that fiscal year does begin that first day of July and ends the final day of June. So apologize for jumping in.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for that clarification, Paul. Appreciate it. So let me see if I can share my screen here. All right, can I get some clarification that it's being shared? Does everybody see it? Awesome.
It's loading. We can see it.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, I'm getting thumbs up. Okay, this is great. All right, as you can see, I think at first glance, it can be a little intimidating. You see a lot of columns, a lot of numbers, and it's really small probably on your screens right now. So let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. So as I mentioned, below here is a few tabs. Year one, expenditures, year two expenditures, a mid-biennium budget check, and instructions. And I'll jump into those here in a little bit. But first thing is just to kind of get you familiar with this. If you look here on the left, this part where it says organization, you don't have to worry about that part. You're not filling this out. This is something your grant manager, whoever's assigned to your grant, will be filling out. Your only thing to do is to make sure that this corresponds to the grant you're going to be reporting on. So when you go into SM Apply, you'll see if you were awarded multiple grants, you want to be able to distinguish your grants. And the information to distinguish your grants can be found here by looking at the project name and or the SMA or the subgrant number. This, like I said, again, this will be filled out by your grant manager. It's basically just the information for your grant and who your grant manager is and how to contact them. Next, you kind of have here your budget. And this, again, will be created by your grant manager. But before your grant manager puts it in here, they'll be meeting with you. Then some of you may have already met with your grant manager, perhaps, but at some point in time, you and the grant manager will work to create the budget. Usually it's supposed to be during the project plan. So I'm not sure if some of you may or may not have done this, but it's structured. So in the project plan, when you meet with your grant manager to fill out the project plan, you'll go in there and provide this information, right? Because we do understand from the time you were awarded perhaps to now, things may have changed already or maybe shuffled a little bit, right? Hence why we would talk to you during the project plan to get some of those little details ironed out and make sure we get it right. And so this would be filled out. There's instructions here on how to fill everything else out. There's administrative costs here. And there's if you look, there's two different things here. And this is more for those grantees that may have a negotiated federal rate and need to have to kind of be able to distinguish those two things. Usually your accounting office will know. And usually it's if you've received funds from the US government and you have to be able to distinguish that. But if you're not sure, it's best to ask your fiscal staff or your accounting staff about that. The cool thing about this is, well, let me move over here to the right a little bit. So here, what I've done already, I already filled out Q1. The cool thing about this is when you fill this out, all the other numbers change or update. So I'm going to go ahead and let's say I'm going to kind of fill out the same thing here. If you look, everything kind of here has already updated, so you don't have to worry about it. It should match what's in your EGMS as well when you later submit an EGMS claim, right? And if you're like, Abraham, what do I need to submit for my EGMS claim? It tells you right here. So ideally, what you would do is on one tab, you'd have your tab open. Oh, I filled it out. That's the amount, right? And if you're the one doing the EGMS claim, you go into EGMS, fill out that amount, hit enter or submit whatever it is. Or if it's somebody else in your organization who's submitting the EGMS claim, you can just email them and let them know this is the amount we need for EGMS, right? Or this might be a conversation where you're both filling this out with accounting or fiscal office and the program person, or whoever it may be. I know it varies from organization to organization, but if we just request that you do keep it the same, right? Right here's a certification. Basically the name and date, who filled this out. That's what it is, right? This is some other stuff. This is more related to Future Ready. Now, mind you, something that I just remembered right now is there may be some slight variations with the way this looks. I know for Future Ready, these categories may be a little different. And please, Sally, if there's anything you want to say or jump in, please go ahead. So just note that. Also, another thing is we also, some organizations may be doing month to month. Like I said, it may look just a little different, their expenditure report, because you may have more columns for each month. And also some of you may or may not, I'm not sure right now, may have requested startup funds, and that would be an extra column. But these things will get sorted out when you speak with your grant manager during the project plan. How that looks like, because there's not a lot, those two things that I mentioned, the monthly and the startup funds, there usually isn't very many organizations who do that, but those that do will speak with their grant manager exactly what that looks like, and they'll go, this will get walked through, you'll walk through with your grant manager again with this once it gets done. You have this other tab. Let me show you the instructions here. So you have the instructions here. Right, year one expenditures, mid-biennium check.
Hey, Abe, sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. Do you mind going back to the year one expenditure? Because I think Sally has a little bit of detail to
Oh,
add.
okay, yeah, please. Sal.
Yeah, I'll just jump in to say that the categories for Future Ready are different because of the federal funding source. And so there will only be 5 categories instead of 7. And the budget will come with, I will send out a list of the category definitions so that you know where to put the expenses that you'll incur related to this grant. But otherwise, everything else will look the same. There are just fewer categories. That's all.
Thank you, Sally. And just kind of the budget categories for this one, I'll go ahead and show them to you here. So sometimes we get the questions, can we spend this on this? Is this good here, right? And we kind of, right here, we have the description to let you know what falls within what. Like I said, make sure you look at yours. Like I said, especially for the Future Ready grantees, so there might be something different there in regards to the requirements. But again, you'll be able to see this. It's posted online right now, so you should be able to see this on the website on the CI side. We have a mid-biennium budget check where it gives you a summary of all your spending and kind of a balance of what hasn't been spent and where, in each budget category. That's really kind of it in a nutshell, the way the expenditure report, like I said before, a lot of it is just fill in the blank. Now, I know some questions, there is also during this, right around when the second year is about to begin, Q4, we do get grantees reaching out to us saying, hey, can we readjust our budget? And that is something you'd have a conversation with your grant manager. And there is a way to adjust that, just to let you know. We know things happen and you're like, whoa, we need to adjust this or move this or staffing related things or challenges perhaps. And that's completely understandable. Just make sure above all, have that open communication with your grant manager and they will be able to kind of help you out with that.
Perfect. Thanks, Abe. Taneja, I believe we can go ahead and stop the recording, please.